Excuse me.
So I've requested the split, which is legitimate, and then the removing of myself is only in the second is in the second motion, so that would be dealt with as the second motion, Mr. Belkey.
So we're splitting. Pardon me. So for clarification, you're proposing splitting off the first part as a separate and dealing with 2 and 3 together first?
No, sorry. My name. I need to find out. I need to determine when I recuse myself. That's up to me, but I'm not in the first half of the motion.
Yeah, certainly. As you said, it's up to the individual councillor to make a determination whether they have a pecuniary interest and take the appropriate actions. And then, of course, you're responsible for, the councillor making that decision is responsible for the accuracy of that decision. So.
Okay, so we'll take number 2 first, the 25 to 50. So that one's accepted. Councillor Heron, go ahead on debate.
Thank you.
Mr.
Yes, go ahead.
As this involves me personally as well as professionally, I did ask that I be provided an opportunity to make some remarks before council gets into debate.
Okay, so
I have about 5-7 minutes worth of remarks.
Okay, so well, let's go ahead. We'll take those comments then.
Members of council and residents of St. Albert, in May of 2014, an anonymous blog appeared called the St. Albert Third Floor News, claiming to be from the office of the mayor and administration. Articles on the blog accused the city manager of forcing the CFO to transfer city money to untraceable places and to hide information from the public. Future articles would deal with an internal auditor, the Aaron Ridge Francophone school site, and suspicious budget proposals. This was not the first time that an anonymous resident have accused City Hall of wrongdoing. However, a line was crossed when freedom of speech became libelous and defamatory towards me due to my role as a city manager. With council approval, I commenced legal action against these anonymous authors. In an interview with the local media at the time, I stated this is an instance where it has gone too far, and this is a message to administration and staff here that as city manager, I will stand up for all of us. As a matter of personal principle, I will defend my reputation against attack, and I will defend the reputation of staff that are not in a position to easily defend themselves. This Third Floor News lawsuit is about defamation of a person's reputation. Defamation is defined as any intentional false communication, either written or spoken, that harms a person's reputation, decreases the respect, regard, or confidence in which a person is held, or induces disparaging, hostile, or disagreeable opinions or feelings against a person. Defamation against the city manager may impair my ability to effectively perform my job and places at risk my ability to earn an income going forward. Since the filing of the lawsuit, we have found people connected to the blog, but not the ultimate author. The next step in the process would be to add one more resident to the lawsuit. This resident was identified during the evidence obtained so far, and there are likely 2 other residents who would be added to the lawsuit after that. But if we thought that the legal action against the anonymous Third Floor News blog creators might discourage defamatory public accusations in the future and improve the public discourse, we were wrong. There continues to be anonymous bloggers on My Birdie and the Gazette comment section who crossed the line. But worst of all, as all of council knows, my reputation and integrity is being challenged without regard for the facts by 3 council members. Councillor Hughes, Councillor Russell, and Councillor McKay are engaging in the same type of harassment and false accusations towards the city manager. Councillor McKay's motion before you concerns the funding of the lawsuit against the Third Floor News and specifically resident Gord Henniger. As council has already approved the funding, I think it would be appropriate for council to understand why in the middle of a legal process is Councillor McKay trying to convince council to intervene on behalf of Mr. Henniger. And what is Councillor McKay's personal relationship with Mr. Henniger? It's public knowledge that Mr. Henniger was a strong supporter of Councillor McKay during the last municipal election. Now, Councillor McKay has provided some documents as background, and he provided a public document as attachment to the background. In it, he presents a series of legal arguments about the merits of the case as if he was a trial attorney providing closing arguments to a judge. With an idea from my attorney, I did check the properties of the Word file of the document that Councillor McKay provided, and the author of the document is listed as GTH Holdings Inc. GTH Holdings Inc. is registered at 12 Demara Crescent in St. Albert, which is the home address of Gord Henniger. Yesterday, Councillor McKay emailed a document to council with a copy to me, which was written by an anonymous resident who claims to be a retired lawyer, having practiced for 35 years. This anonymous author proceeds to fill 8 pages of legal-sounding arguments that contain many errors and accusations. However, what was most curious to me is this anonymous resident document is written in the same font and format as the document that Councillor McKay attached to the administrative background. So I checked the properties in this Word file, supposedly from an anonymous resident lawyer, and found the author was also GTH Holdings Inc. And as I mentioned before, an internet search reveals that GTH Holdings Inc. as the author is registered at 12 Demara Crescent in St. Albert, which is the home address of Gord Henniger. So 2 documents provided by Councillor McKay as support for his motion that are linked to the very person named in the Third Floor News lawsuit. In reference to Councillor McKay's motion, the actual legal cost incurred to the end of October are $26,366, and there will be a small additional amount for November that will be billed in December. On the second part of the motion, reaffirming indemnification, the council motion to approve the legal cost in the first place did not affirm or declare that the city is entitled to some form of liability protection. A council motion like this to remove director's liability insurance for the city manager has serious legal implications based on policy and the employment contract between the city and the city manager. I would strongly recommend that council seek both internal and external legal counsel on this proposed second motion. In the background administrative report, it was recommended this matter be deferred to the first quarter of 2016, as there are developments in the case that will unfold over the next few months. I don't anticipate significant expenditures, but a delay of this motion will ensure that important information is made available. If council makes a decision today in support of Councillor McKay's first or second motion, I'll be consulting with my family and my lawyer on options for next steps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Process-wise, we've got the motions, amendments, so we can't remove Nolan Kraus out of there because that's on the second motion. Can we get the split up, and then we'll take the 25 to 50,000 as well as deleting the last sentence. The very first motion.
Mr. Mayor, would
Yes.
would you entertain a postpone motion?
Yes, I believe that takes precedent over everything. A postponement of the entire matter, or what?
Entire matter, Mr. Mayor. What we've heard tonight is troubling to say the least. I think it's incumbent upon all of us sitting at this bench.
Okay, let's just before we begin debate, let's get the postponement. So, are you giving a suggested date? The entire matter. You're not interested right now in anything. You're interested in a full postponement.
Postponement till the end of quarter 1, 2016.
Okay, that postponement takes precedence. So wait, Ms. Gaskar, to get that one up on the screen. Okay, so we have Councillor Osborne, Councillor Broadhead, and Councillor McKay are all up there on the other stuff. So I think first up is any questions on this postponement before I accept the motion? Okay, Councillor Broadhead, motion's accepted. Go ahead on debate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. what we've heard tonight and what has transpired is troubling to me, and quite honestly, I believe requires each one of us on the bench to do some significant soul searching on how we proceed forward on what is a significant of the integrity of this particular body. And quite honestly, Mr. Mayor, I'm not in a position to be able to clearly and intelligently respond to the motions that are presented today. And quite honestly, I believe I will be searching for some independent legal advice in terms of how I proceed as an individual who's been elected by the city of St. Albert residents to represent this community well. And I believe in order for me to do that correctly, I need the time in order to be able to research the issue appropriately and then come fully prepared to discuss it.
Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Patrick, for your comments here. I'd like to make a couple of clarifications. First off, you stated a couple of things. There is no defamatory blog. There's an alleged defamatory blog. You haven't proven anything to this date. You pointed out that I have a strong supporter in Mr. Henniger, and perhaps that's true. But at no time have I ever received any financial support from him. I have worked with a retired lawyer in town from a property Mr. Henniger owns, and that's that. For full disclosure. That's all that there is behind it. I realize that you're desperate in order to try and attack members of council, but this is not appropriate the way you're going about it. This is simply a motion to restrict the city's liability and to restrict funding on a personal lawsuit. So I don't see any reason why this should go ahead today, or rather should not go ahead today. The motion is very straightforward and simple. To postpone this to Q1 2016, even the backgrounder states that there is very limited financial impact between now and then. There's no reason why Mr. Draper can't pursue this lawsuit on his own, especially since the cost is very minimal. I see postponing this simply as an obstruction of the process and an obstruction of my motion. It's very simple. Let's get out of the business of suing residents. So why can't we deal with this now?
Councillor Hughes on debate.
Thank you. If we postpone this, we've continued to give an unlimited budget, which is substantial. The MGA requires that every item that comes before council has a budget. This does not. This is a violation of the MGA, in my opinion. And when I talk to people, they also agreed with that it has to have a defined number. We can't just give an unlimited budget. So we postpone this for another 4 months. It continues with that. Regardless if it's snow clearing or anything else, it's supposed to actually have a finite number, and that was overlooked. So for us to sit here and say that we'll wait another 5 months and see how much more money is accrued before this is even debated is a wrong thing. So I'm bringing this forward that we're doing this as a violation of the MGA if we actually continue with an unlimited budget.
Councillor Osborne on debate.
Thank you. Well, I came here tonight certainly prepared to vote on the motions. However, given some of the events that have happened tonight in terms of a number of things, both the split, the amendments to the split, the potential for recusing, and some of the information that's been presented, for me, I think it behooves council to make sure that we get this right in terms of some of the legalities of this. I think the reputation of our council is critical, and I think that this is one of those situations where we need to get this right. So I'm going to support postponement.
Before I go to you, Councillor Russell, Mr. Belkey, council has the right to hire an independent lawyer because Mr. Klenke is a corporate lawyer. The process to hire an independent lawyer just to advise council and councilors is what?
Council could pass a motion authorizing such an engagement to hire third-party legal counsel. Mr. Klenke might be able to provide some advice on that. The budget for third-party legal comes out of his department, so
could come out of council contingency, I suppose.
That's what I was just about to suggest. Okay. That would be the other option.
Okay, Councillor Russell on postponement debate.
Well, I have to say this, Mr. Mayor, because I have been concerned since day one about the original motion, which was seemed to me to be an open-ended motion to support the lawsuit of the city manager. That bothered me, as I said, from day one. And on October the 22nd, you may recall that I sent you an email to my real concern about us moving any further with respect to Mr. McKay's motion without making sure we knew where we were going. And I just heard your suggestion that, notwithstanding that we do have a solicitor, that this might be a good time for us to be briefed separately. I'm not a lawyer, but I know that if you give someone an undertaking that you will support him to take a certain action, unless that is changed, you're bound to support that. And this may or may not be a good time to stop that action. I don't know. I haven't been briefed. I don't know the details as a councillor. If Mr. Draper decides to voluntarily abandon it, that's another thing, but he hasn't said that or even hinted at it. So I'm prepared to vote for this to be set off. But in the meantime, I believe this council needs to be briefed. If our city solicitor feels he has a problem with that, and that is not a criticism, and that we should have our own separate solicitor, I'd be a lot more comfortable with that.
Thank you. Councillor Herron?
Mr. Draper earlier said that he's got a few small things in the upcoming days and weeks. I think postponing this to Q1 is not going to be cause for unlimited spending. I do agree that we should probably have a limit on the spending, but I think after what happened, after some of the new information we've received today, I think it behooves us actually to take a step back and even, what do we call this, a sober second thought and reflect. We had a speaker come to us at the very beginning of today's meeting and talking about the conduct and the impression that we're giving our public, and that is embarrassing to myself, and it should be to all of the members of this bench. So to make a decision today without all the facts is a problem. So I'm going to support the postponement, and I think we need to maybe have a conversation, council, on some independent advice.
Councillor McKay, you've already entered debate on this already. I'll give you one more chance.
I have an amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I'd like to say January 11th, 2016.
Okay. Motion is accepted as an amendment.
Councillor Broadhead, is that a friendly amendment?
I'm not sure how friendly it is. It gives us a month then. I'm not sure whether we can get it done in that time. I'd take the end of January.
I have no problem with that. I just want a firm date. So that would be January the 25th.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I could just comment on the dates. In my remarks, I did say the intent was to add one more resident to the lawsuit. And between now and January 11th or the end of January, that process would not have been completed.
So we won't take consent. Way of a friendly. There's also really such thing as a friendly. You actually have to.
A friendly amendment is essentially a suggestion from a member of council to modify it, and if the mover accepts it, it becomes a new thing. If the mover does not accept the friendly amendment, that's the same amendment could be put forward as an amending motion.
Okay, so where are you at, Councillor Broadhead? Is it friendly or not? I mean, it's up to you. You don't have to take. We can vote on it as an amendment.
Yeah, well, let's vote on it.
Okay. So Councillor McKay's motion is to change it to what? Did you say January 11th?
I'm satisfied with January 25th, although I just want a firm date on this.
Okay, so the Q1 be changed to January 25th. Okay, on debate, as she types it up, go ahead, Councillor McKay. The simple thing is
thank
just
you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like this matter to come to a head, and whether people are added to the lawsuit or not is irrelevant to me. I just want this matter addressed with. Whether the funding occurs or not, whether the city's involved or not, is irrelevant to who's added or removed from this lawsuit. I just want this matter dealt with because we've got an open-ended lawsuit that's being funded. It's completely unprecedented in regards to municipal affairs. I've never heard of a government anywhere paying an employee to sue residents on their behalf because it doesn't happen anywhere else. I'd like this matter brought to a head. I'd like a limit placed on the funding and the city's involvement in this to end. And to postpone this to January 25th is 2.5 months down the road. Should be plenty of time for whatever is going to occur. And in any event, it's irrelevant to my motion regarding funding, because that part of it can be picked up and run with by our city manager on his own dime, as everyone else has to do in this society, pay their own legal bills. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes on this motion.
Thank you. Moving it up to January 25th should be fine. It's pretty clear that cutting out the funding does not at all stop the lawsuit from proceeding, unless it's actually a city lawsuit that's required to have the funding to move forward. So the items that Mr. Draper has brought forward were very accusatory and obviously need to be dealt with. But that being said, there is nothing that would prevent him from continuing the lawsuit at any time, whether it was now or it was in January. And so I think that we need to actually deal with this and not just continue to postpone it indefinitely. And Q1 can then become Q2, which can become 2017. And we don't need to finish the lawsuit. We just need to say that we're going to stop it. The intention was never that the lawsuit would be ending at this moment.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you. I agree with the need certainly to come to some kind of resolution and figure out where we're going with this. What I don't want to be is hamstrung in terms of council having all the information. I'm not as concerned about the next steps for Mr. Draper. I'm much more concerned about council making sure that we have some legal advice on understanding the implications of our decision. That may be done by January 25th. I don't know for sure. I think personally I'd rather just see the motion talk about Q1 2016, leave it with agenda committee. If council is satisfied we've got the information we need, then let's get it on the agenda. That might be January 25th. It could be sometime in February. I don't know. But to me, the issue is making sure that we've got all the information to make a good
I have
decision.
a point of order as well, Mr. Mayor. The agenda committee is comprised of the mayor, the city manager, and one councillor. 2 to 3 people are involved in the lawsuit. There will be no quorum on the agenda committee. It will be one councillor. It's not possible simply to leave it to Q1 with the agenda committee.
Thank you. So on debate on this matter, if this passes or fails, I'm going to be giving notice of motion that council secures some legal advice on the lawsuit. I haven't got the wording figured out yet, but I'm not going to support this, but I am going to give notice of motion. Councillor McKay to close.
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Please vote. Vote's closed, and that's defeated. So back to debate on the Q1. Is there anybody wishing to re-enter the debate or finish the debate on Q1? Councillor Broadhead to close.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate all the comments. I think going forward, we just need to be organized as a bench, fully instructed as a bench, and then we can make the proper decision. Thank you.
Please vote. Vote's closed. That's carried by majority. So I'm going to read this into the record right now, but it might change after I give it some sleep time. Council secure legal advice on the third floor news lawsuit. I need to get some additional information what that might cost and all that stuff. I don't know even how we do that. Even picking a lawyer might require extra research, but I will give that notice of motion right now with some details after I've given it some thought. Is there anything else in this matter, Mr. Draper? I guess I just have one other question, and that is the documents that we've been provided by Councillor McKay. You have made the statements that that they were not written by Councillor McKay. Is that what I heard you say, or they came from another source?
Mr. Mayor, on an electronic document, a Word file, there is a feature called Properties, and under Properties there's a tab called Details, and in the Details section it records the author, they call it, of the document. And that's what I was referring to. That listed on the documents that Councillor McKay provided, the author was this GTH Holdings. And I did a separate internet search and found it to be the same home address as Gord Henniger.
Okay, I just didn't, it was going so fast.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like the city manager to answer that
Yes,
question.
absolutely.
What are you saying, Mr. Draper?
I'm just stating a fact.
You were asked if I was the author or not, and
No,
what's
I asked you if you're the author earlier on. You said yes, which
and
is what I do.
you asked him if he's saying that I was not the author.
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand.
For the record, the document involving how you split the motions off regarding to amendment, I wrote that. The other document was written by a retired lawyer. Now, you asked Mr. Draper if he is stating otherwise, and I'd like him to answer that.
What I'm stating, Councillor McKay, is the electronic information on the file that you sent lists the author as GTH Holdings. That's what the document says.
So, is that a yes or a no?
I'm saying, Councillor McKay, that's what the document says.
Sorry, you're saying.
So
the author
I don't
or
think
not?
we're in a court of law and we're going to go back and forth. And we had a presentation at the start of the night about how council needs to start moving forward. So if you guys aren't going to sort this
Well,
out back and
I'm
forth,
sorry,
he stated his position. You stated yours. So I think we need to move forward.
I guess.
Well, point of order, Mr. Mayor. If something's being stated, put it on the record. You asked the question, so let's see it. No, he hasn't. He's evaded the question. So I'd like an answer in that regard.
The record has been stated. I don't know. I think rather than us take it any further, I just wanted to be real clear on what he said. So I think for the purposes of tonight, he's made the statement so 2 or 3 times. Okay, moving on to information request notice of motion. Councillor Hughes, I'm going to start with you, please.
Okay, so the parallel parking business case, when it came forward in September, we were told that it had to wait till 2016 because there's a business case coming in budget, and it occurred to me last night that I didn't see a business case in budget for the parallel parking. So what's up with that?
Can we check on that?
I will, yes.
We do have his Councillor Broadhead's motion to debate relative to the, I think it's, but okay.
But if that doesn't go forward,
So if we could take that as